you if you told me I'd be here now doing medicine. Next trick has literally saved my life and got me all of my academic grades. It does cross my mind, is this going to affect how I am as a doctor? It's a fine line between thinking you're slower than everyone else and thinking that you're stupid. I don't know if it would have ever have got picked up if it wasn't for Hello my loves and welcome back to my channel. So I don't know why, but I feel really nervous recording today's video, and that is because it is something very different for my channel, but also I find it a really hard subject to talk about myself. However, that being said, I know a lot of you have picked up from the vlogs that I am actually dyslexic, and it's something that I've struggled with for basically my whole life, and I felt it was such an important subject to talk about, share my story of having a learning disability, my advice and my tips, how it's affected me studying medicine, and also how I've still achieved really highly academically. And I just sat and thought to myself, if this video helps one single person out there who feels anything like me get through it, then it is worth putting it out there. So I really hope you do like the sound of today's video. If you do, please remember to give it a big thumbs up. It really helps my channel out. And if you are new, then hi, welcome. My name is Anna. I'm a second year medical student at the University of Birmingham, and it would mean the world if you took 2 little seconds to just click that subscribe button. We have so much exciting content coming up that you do not want to miss out on. But anyway, grab yourselves a drink. I have my favourite lemon and ginger tea. It's going to be a proper chatty raw video, and I have broken it down into different sections. So I'm going to put all the timestamps for that in the description box below, so you can skip to exactly the section you care about, because I know we're all busy people and we don't want to listen to me rambling on. But anyway, I thought we would start at the very beginning and how I knew I had dyslexia and how I got diagnosed. I guess the very first sign is very standard, but it really has been there since primary school, and no matter how hard every single teacher and my mum tried, I have always been horrific at spelling, and spelling tests have always been my absolute worst nightmare, because despite as a little girl trying so hard and so long trying to learn these words, I would always mistake 1 or 2 letters in a word, no matter how big or small it was. These were always just little tiny mistakes, and I've just been like this ever since. I find spelling probably the most challenging thing ever, and I really do just need to work really hard at this. But then this manifested into reading as well, and always remembered absolutely dreading having to read out loud in class. When the teacher makes you read out the sentence, my heart literally sinks and I absolutely dread it. And my worst nightmare has always been people laughing at me for mistaking words, because when I have to read sentences out loud, the best way I can describe it is I'm not processing what I'm saying at all. I'm literally just reading the letters, and you could ask me any question about that sentence and I would have no idea what I just read out. And I also tend to make up words that aren't there when I'm reading sentences as well, which is another key sign of dyslexia. So heading into secondary school, none of this was actually picked up as a learning disability, because I wasn't actually properly diagnosed till I was 15, which is definitely on the later side for dyslexia, but I'll go into that whole process and how it was picked up in a little bit. But one of the strong things I really started to notice was I was just always a little bit step behind everyone, and I remember people saying stuff to me, and it just took me a few more minutes longer than everyone else to process what they were saying and give my answer and participate in conversations. And for that reason I did end up getting the reputation of being quite slow and a little bit ditzy, and that really was just me and part of my personality, and it wasn't meant in an upsetting or horrible way. And to be honest, I don't even know now if I've properly processed how I felt about it. But the problem came, it's a fine line between thinking you're slower than everyone else and thinking that you're stupid. And I remember spending a lot of my early years of secondary school so confused about why I was just that step behind everyone. Why did it take me that bit longer to process it? And I kind of just put it down to not being as clever as everyone else. And I always remember saying to my mum, I'm just not naturally clever, whatever naturally clever means. And I've come to learn that I think a lot of clever people do have to work really hard as well, and not being naturally clever isn't really a thing. But that is what I convinced myself. Now, when it started to come up to GCSEs and exams getting serious, I'd never been completely failing in class, but I hadn't been doing particularly well. Internally, I knew I was really capable, and I just had it in the back of my head that I completely wanted to smash my exams, prove to people that I actually was really clever, because inside I felt like I had so much to contribute. I always ended up working to the answer. I just felt a little bit of a step behind everyone, and I really do know it's not as easy as this for everyone, but I am still a firm believer in if you put your mind to something and you give it 110%, you really can achieve anything that you want. And this is the mentality that I was taking into my GCSEs. I was working really hard to stay on top at school, and yes, I was never the very top set or the very top of my class, but I was staying pretty high up. Now, as you can imagine, one of my hardest GCSE subjects was actually English, for all of the reasons above. I was a very slow reader, and for that reason I didn't particularly enjoy reading. I found it really hard work. I spelt everything wrong. My grammar is also awful. I often get my words muddled around as well, which I do on camera sometimes as well. Like, my sentences don't quite make sense, but like I said, I've always been very driven academically, and I was working really hard at this subject too. Actually, my GCSE English teacher that did pick up my dyslexia, and I owe so much to him, and it really has put me on this path. And I don't know if it would have ever have got picked up if it wasn't for such an amazing teacher. Shout out to Mr. Parks. I don't think he'll be watching this, but anyway, he made such huge difference, and I really do have a lot to thank him for. But what happened was, during our English lessons, we had an hour to read and write something, and then he would take it in and mark it, just as more of like exam practice. And it meant that it was all in the classroom. You couldn't get anyone to check over anything. It was a set amount of time. It was all your own work. And after he got my first one of that back and marked it, I think it was probably really obvious the little mistakes that I was making. He probably picked up in class that I can't read sentences without jumbling around a few words, my little spelling mistakes, and he actually contacted my mum and really recommended that I went and got a dyslexic test. And after that, I got my diagnosis, and it was really quite obvious that I was dyslexic. I got below average in most things, and then very below average in my processing skills, which to today is the thing that I find the hardest to manage in day-to-day life and also just deal with. But the biggest thing about getting a diagnosis that helped me is it just explained why I am the way I am. I spent so many years thinking that I was just a little bit stupid or a little bit behind everyone or just not quite as with it, and to have on a piece of paper that my processing skills were very below average just helped explain so much to me why I am the way I am. And I was like, that makes so much sense to me, why I'm processing little conversations with people or the teacher talking in class. So yeah, that is my story up to my diagnosis. So after my diagnosis, what that meant is basically any exams since then, I've got 25% extra time. So that was for my GCSEs, my A-levels, my UCAT to get into medical school, and now my medical school exams, I also get 25% time in. And to me, that 25% has made a huge difference. I still never feel like I have enough time on papers, and some exams I don't get to the end of, but that is the same for everyone. And it just means I get a fair chance because my reading skills are slightly slower, my writing skills are slower, and the big one is my processing speed is slightly slower. And I was really lucky to have the opportunity to get a proper assessment, and not everyone is as lucky as me. But if you do really feel like my story resonates with you, then I would urge you to please speak out to your school or anyone that you think will help you, because honestly, getting a diagnosis has completely changed my academic experience, and I have no idea where I would be without it. Then, like I was saying, the support at my secondary school was amazing, and it meant that I got weekly learning support sessions where they taught me a lot of the tips that I have now and tools to use to understand and support my learning disability, which I'm going to share with you next because I feel so lucky to have learned them. And also, I think those 15 years of not having a diagnosis meant that I had to come up with little coping mechanisms and my own tricks that have helped me to still achieve really highly academically and to kind of get my learning disability underneath the rug and not get it picked up sooner. And then since coming to university, I have to say, a bit like a lot of things, it is a lot more independent than it was at secondary school. However, there are several things that you can do. So if you are in the UK, make sure you apply for the DSA, which is the Disabled Student Allowance. This means you'll get things like Grammarly completely free. They also give you some money towards a laptop and also loads of software, which is absolutely amazing for writing essays or just support at university, because it's another completely different learning style and it can be a bit of a shock for anyone, the change. And then also I would really recommend making sure you get in contact with your learning disability support at your own university, and we get things called RAPs, which are regional adjustment plans, and you'll get a one-to-one tutor who will go through this with you. Make sure you still get your same 25% extra time or any of the support that you got during exams followed through into university. But then getting to medical school, the hardest thing for me is the sheer amount of words that are to learn, whether that's in anatomy, physiology, pharmacology. There really are so many little words, and like I said, this is part of my brain that I have to work really hard at. However, Anki, as you all know, has helped me out so much, and just repeating and repeating and repeating, and again, a lot of the tips that I'm going to end the video with have helped me coming into medical school as well. And sometimes in the back of my head it does cross my mind, is this going to affect how I am as a doctor? However, I've decided personally that it's only going to make me a better doctor, because I have to communicate things clearer to myself to understand them. Hence why I'm going to do exactly the same things with my patients, make sure that I'm really clear and they understand everything, and it will help my patient rapport. I'm also, as a result, a very visual learner, and going into OSCEs and my practical years, I'm hoping that my strengths come out in this way. And yes, I might find remembering little words more challenging than other medical students, but everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, and that just happens to be one of mine that I have to work harder at. Finally, probably the part of the video you have all been waiting for, which are my tips and tricks which have meant I can still get top academic grades and get into medical school despite having a learning disability. First one is, during your assessment or slightly after, you're going to get given a load of different coloured sheets to go over your white piece of paper, and they're going to ask you what seems clearer. And when they first did this, I thought, what are you talking about? A little sheet on a piece of paper is going to make no difference. And then they asked me, does the white piece of paper move? And I said to them, there's little particles moving around. And I decided in my head that writing had particles and they all move, and that was normal. Now, obviously, this is another sign of my dyslexia, and your learning disability or dyslexia might be very different to me. However, a lot of people do find a certain colour over the top of writing helps everything look so much clearer. And mine is this aqua blue colour, and there were different colours like yellow, green, pink. Now, whatever your colour is, make sure that you do use it in every aspect that you can. It's just going to make your life easier, save you a lot of headaches, and also mean that you can read your work better. I made sure to put all my flashcards and notes and as much as I can on my blue colour. I also got some of these overlays and a bookmark, and these were really helpful for when you couldn't get the work printed onto blue, or when you just wanted to read something and stick the overlay on top. Now, obviously now a lot of my work is actually online, and during my exams at medical school you can actually turn the whole screen blue, which is really helpful, and make the text bigger as well. But you can also do something similar on iPads and laptops. I've actually got a colour filter turned on my laptop and iPad, which means it's slightly blue tinted, and this just takes the glaze off and helps with that moving around of the words on a computer screen. So if you didn't know about that trick, make sure that you turn the colour filter on your device. And again, I have my text and displays on my phone, laptop, iPad, all slightly bigger than the standard, just because it helps me read things clearer, and I get less annoyed at not being able to read what is on the screen when it's just that little bit bigger. Now, this next tip is so important, and that is to make sure you spend some time working out your learning style. Now, I remember doing a little quiz online and working out that I'm way more of a visual learner, and I also know that I can't just listen to someone and understand what they're saying. I have to write little notes. It doesn't really matter what I'm writing, as long as I'm using that part of my brain to write a few notes, and I take things in so much better and absorb what they're saying. But everyone has a slightly different learning style, and spending some time making sure you properly understand yours is going to make a huge difference. You could waste hours learning it in a way that just doesn't suit you. Now, not to be dramatic, but this next trick has literally saved my life and got me all of my academic grades, and that is my whiteboard tip or equivalent. Now, as you will have seen in all of my vlogs, I literally write on my iPad and rub it all out and just write words as I am revising. And I used to do the same on a whiteboard and just rub it out after. And honestly, just repeating words again and again and again, writing them, rubbing them out, writing them, rubbing them out, is the best way that it gets into my brain. And having a whiteboard just at hand to squiggle things down and not worry about what they look like, how neat they are, has made a huge difference. My next tip is probably true for everyone, but especially if you do have a learning disability. Make sure you are organised first, above and beyond everything else. Now, as you all know, I'm obsessed with my paper diary, and organising my life and time blocking just makes me feel way less higgledy-piggledy. I know what's going on, but also if anything comes into my head, I always write it down on a piece of paper or a sticky note, because having things up in my head and not written down for me is a real big problem, and that is how I forget things. Having a diary and a little scrappy piece of paper or a sticky notepad just to remember key things is crucial for me, as well as making sure all of your notes and folders are really organised. I know it might seem like a hassle, but I promise you it's going to save you so much time and help you out so much. And for me, that is having everything really organised over on Anki, and you'll see my whole Anki video if that is relevant for you. But I also use OneNote on the side as well to download loads of sheets and keep everything really organised over there in folders that doesn't need to be on a flashcard. Now, this kind of links in with my next tip, and for me, making my notes online made a huge difference over handwriting my notes. And the biggest reason was because if you make a mistake, it is so easy to change it online, whereas you spend so much more time having to rub it out, use a Tipp-Ex, or just squiggle it out, which for me completely ruined the page and I had to start all over again. And if you're fortunate enough to be in the position to be able to get a laptop or an iPad, it honestly did make a really big difference for me, being able to type my work rather than handwrite everything, and just save me a lot of time. Now, my final tip is to just be open and honest and learn to accept your learning disability. I really do think one of the main reasons why I was able to still perform really highly academically before my diagnosis of having a learning disability was because I really was never afraid to ask questions, except that I didn't understand anything. Like I said, I've always been determined to make sure, no matter how much time it takes, that I do understand that concept, and I've really never been afraid to ask the teacher that extra question, or actually say, no, I don't understand what is going on, can you explain this one more time for me? And I know it might seem really frustrating, but just saying to your teacher, look, I'm really struggling with this, I do have dyslexia, I find that it takes me a little bit longer to understand the concepts, would you mind maybe after school or after this class going over it one more time? They're going to understand your situation more, and they're going to want to help you make sure you understand everything and achieve your best. And at the end of the day, no matter what position you're in, as long as you're trying to be the best version of yourself and achieve exactly what you want to achieve, and never put any limits on what you can do because of your learning disability. 13-year-old me that thought I was that ditzy girl in the year would honestly laugh at you if you told me I'd be here now doing medicine. But have confidence in yourself, and you really can do anything. Like I said, never put yourself in a box, never put limits on what you can do. I hope this video has helped in any way at all. And if you have any questions about anything, or just want to share your story and we can all help each other in the comments below, that would be amazing. But yeah, I really hope sharing my story has helped. I feel like I've just rambled on and on and on. But anyway, make sure you give it a big thumbs up and have an amazing rest of your week, and I'll see you all so soon. Bye!